weird. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I've got to redo everything now. Do you think you know of a weapon far more destructive and dangerous than what I currently hold in my possession? Your light weapons and your corrupted light weapons, and hell, even your light and dark weapons, yes, may fear people. But I embody fear itself, with one weapon that not even you have been able to remove from my grasp. Please, you think you're a threat? You think you can defeat me, you foolish human? I hold a weapon that not even your single mind can comprehend. A weapon that is both dead and alive. The weapon I am currently talking about is none other than the Dark Katana, and I am its wielder, Duncan. The Dark weapons in general, and the Dark Katana included, are a series of dangerous weapons made to counteract the more sadistic, evil light weapons. A light weapon, if you get hit by it, you will know because you will feel pain every waking moment, and it will keep you. Okay. A light weapon, if you get hit by it, you will be forced to keep alive. Forced to live through the pain. As for a dark weapon, anyway, the Dark Katana is Makuto Duncan's iconic weapon, even more so than the iconic photon cannon, of which I've done a video about. This weapon MD holds in his hand is often referred to by many to be quite nasty and quite destructive. If you can identify the blade by the runes close to the hilt, and a quite lovely lavender gem on the hilt. It's the gem of the universe, and the runes are actually just random runes MD has inscribed with the blade. The dark weapons and light weapons both have 10 stages. They'll have 5 stages. The Dark Katana is actually a bastard sword forged from the remains of a sword of a dark weapon many years before. In fact, it is called a bastard sword because it not only has not only has double the amount of stages to advance to, but it also holds it also has upgrades to it. The runes, even though are random, are power and shielding runes that Makuto Duncan is inscribed onto the blade on both sides. His weapon, with the attachment of the universal gem, has a small realm that powers the blade, of where people whom he targets and hits are sent. Makuto Duncan is a very, very nasty individual in the hands of it. But to understand the Dark Katana and how it came to be, we must talk about the dark weapons and their creation, and the major war that a lot of early races fought with. Before the beginning of the universe, at the beginning of time, there were several prehistoric races. They are the Zolkians, which were a bunch of insectoid-like raptors that lived on what would become Anubis 9, the Bionicles of Spherus Magna, proto-humans of Earth, or proto-Earth, didn't exist at this stage. The Rhinoxians, Xernoxians, and Dalnoxians of Ranox, as well as many other races that would eventually become quite dangerous, including the Forerunners and the Precursors. Around 700 years ago, the Precursors and the half the galaxy decided to build weapons that were very sadistic, a race that even rivaled the Precursors in their nastiness, known as the Talcorians. The Talcorians were very nasty.
Attack the enemy!
Had developed and built the light weapons in a place called the Fort of Creation. Of the construction of these weapons, a lot of people often began to fear that side of the galaxy. When a few races banded together and managed to take them, the Bionicles, the Zamorians, and the Zadoktu, and the Renoxians, they developed their own weapons. Why is my game frozen?
Destroy the target!
Oh, is it weird? Really don't get my own. Whatever.
Awesome!
Because of this, a lot of people often felt that these races, that they had finally had enough of living in the fear that was of the light, and developed the much more friendlier dark weapons. However, they did something that the dark weapons would eventually become infamous for. In order to be used by every individual, the weapon must choose who wielded it. The original creators of the dark weapons could never wield them, because the dark weapons knew them and would manipulate them. Over the years, a war of light and dark began, and eventually, this resulted in quite a bit of destructive forces. And because of it, many people lost their lives. Eventually, it would also destroy dark and light weapons. When they collided, they formed other universes. Including Andromeda, and many others. Only 3 dark weapons existed after the Light and Dark War. This was the Dark Longsword, wielded by Draxon, Spherus Magna. The Dark Scythe. And of course, the Dark Broadsword, all of which ended up in different parts of the universe. The Sol System, as it would be known by the local human population, would have the Dark Broadsword hidden away on an asteroid that would collide with Earth. This chunk would eventually separate and become the Moon. But the asteroid that had the broadsword would be used in wiping out the dinosaurs. Oh, 2 more. Oh no, if I drop 4 more on that base, and then I can drop 4 more on that base. I lost my bombs on that base. Anyway. Sorry. Eventually, the dark side would be found and destroyed by Draxon, who used the Dark Longsword to absorb it into the blade. Because of this, the Dark Longsword had actually reached Stage 5, and was setting up the turn of events that would eventually happen. After Draxon had a family, and was murdered by the hands of Andorians, a race that had come many years of evolution. Many people began to be quite annoyed
Affirmative.
the fact that dark weapons were there. Eventually, throughout history on Earth, the dark lords will be picked up and used in many different ways, shaping the type of famous weapons and other weapons throughout history.
Affirmative.
But not limited to. Where the hell? Oh. Excalibur.
Take him down.
And many other weapons.
Il mio motore sta perdendo potenza. Proverò un atterraggio di fortuna. Hai un buco nella tua ala sinistra. Quasi.
What? Actually, I think crabs. If I recall correctly, I know someone mentioned the other day, crab, that clan actually got reported too. Oh. Unfortunately, none of my bombs hit to the base. Oh well. After Drexel's death, the Dark Sword went straight to Duncan, who at that stage was known as Jake, who used it for many years. After Jake's disappearance, not many people knew what happened to the Dark Sword afterwards. People wanted to say that it had disappeared, or that it had been used by other individuals. What really happened is the sword got buried in an arena. There it would remain, but eventually be destroyed, broken, due to an idiot who picked up the blade and tried to fuse it with his own sword, with a light sword. The swords resulted in the breaking and then later creation of many more Bionicles, including the Great Beings. After the destruction of the sword, and a lot of other things, Mahulu Duncan would return to Spherus Magna, having uncovered another dark weapon, the Dark Morningstar. The Dark Morningstar he would use in creating a thing for them to get out of there. Mahulu Duncan eventually picked up the sword and used it. Hello, random viewer. I don't know who it is. It probably might be Anthony. Well, yes, I think I know who this is. We'll wait to see if he comments. If he comments, yeah. If he doesn't, oh well. I'm just talking about a fictional weapon I made. Yeah. Mahulu Duncan eventually took the Dark Longsword, the remains of the Dark Longsword, a few fragments of the Dark Morningstar, and a few other random weapons, and crafted out of the remains the Son of a Nub. Oh wait, no, there are ships in this match. Yeah, they're in the water. The Dark Katana, as it was known. In the beginning, it was not very good, as most weapons were. After the creation of the Dark Katana, many people on Spherus Magna learned of its creation because it was the weapon that Duncan used after reforming. join you. Over the years, the Dark Katana would sit at Makuta Duncan's side as he preferred to use at the time the photonic cannon, of which was much to him was much more dangerous and destructive. After years of using the photon cannon, eventually the photon cannon began to overheat and crack, and he would upgrade both the Dark Katana and the photon cannon. It wasn't until 2016 that Makuta Duncan's Dark Katana took on another shape, that of a massive, quite larger sword. I can do. There are no ships in this match. Deploy it. It's weird, because every time I've fought in this map, there's always been ships. Successfully deployed a torpedo. And a bomb base on the close. And Debbie Dozy. Anyway. The Dark Katana eventually was upgraded to stage 3. And at stage 3 it was far more dangerous than it had been for years. Makuta Duncan used to dispatch an enemy known as Toa Baba. After Toa Baba's death, Makuta Duncan understood the weapon's lust and hunger. Understanding quite carefully what the weapon needed, he began to use the Dark Katana far more often as his main weapon. It suited him well, and for the first 4 years of his life, Makuta Duncan murdered and killed hundreds of thousands of people. Eventually, though, he'd encounter someone who really started to get on his nerves. When Makuta Duncan first joined the Order of Drugs as its first general, to help reverse much of the radiation in the atmosphere, a robot by the name of Icefire pissed Makuta Duncan off with his, quite at the time, annoyance and rambling. Makuta Duncan killed him with the Dark Katana, along with Dronax and a few other individual people, on Spherus Magna after it had been resurrected and such. Makuta Duncan would eventually fight against an individual, would be invited back after the group had learnt of Makuta Duncan's survivals. This group was the current government of Spherus Magna, much to Makuta Duncan's annoyance. In fact, they had tried to remove Makuta Duncan's illegitimate claim, but the one thing they could not remove was the fear of the Dark Katana. Having invited Makuta Duncan back to try and talk him into surrendering the Dark Katana, Makuta Duncan straight up declined, and any threats that were made to him used. I'm done. I hate fighting Yaks. Oh my god, I don't have a left wing. Yaks? No. We want to continue on. Yaks need a nerf. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. Fucking Yaks need a nerf. there is... It pisses me off, because you could be flying a very, very well-resistant plane, or a plane that in real life could shrug off hundreds of rounds, but the moment you find a fucking Russian plane, in this plane, regardless if it's a BF-109, the F-4U, or whatever, you can just throw that shit out the window. It seems to me that, like, all the fucking weapons, you know, you get in the game, it's basically fuck that, because you fly the B-17s or anything like that, fuck you and your shit. Anyway, I'm going to play a bit more of the SP2C, then I'm going to finish it. The Dark Katana was on stage 5 when he was invited back to Spherus Magna. Makuta Duncan learned of the mistreatment, especially by the new Dark Hunters, at the hands that his family had been receiving, including his pet Scar, including various assassination and poison attempts on their lives. Makuta Duncan tried to be diplomatic, and at the time, no one was listening. This pissed him off. It got to the point where Makuta Duncan had enough, saying that if his family was harmed again by anyone, he would murder them, and then use it as a good leverage for war. This had been 2 years after the Zenoian attack, or betrayal.
Attention to the map!
Unfortunately for Makuta Duncan, during the time that he had been away, the Dark Hunters had attacked his family, as well as his cousin. Talking to the creator, Makuta Duncan said, "We are now at war with Spherus Magna's government." Contacting old friends and allies, a lot of former Makuta, including Ranjuna, Zemo Necro, and others, joined Makuta Duncan's cause, as did other Toa and that, including the 3 remaining members of the Toa Nera, Mr. Hero Factory, Generation 2, because it's an older universe, but a lot of people tried to then, and the few that remained on the side of the new Toa Council, very far were defeated. Makuta Duncan launched in a very pissed off, learning that they were nearly killed because of the system brother leading the game. Like a facade. When you don't even pull out a void, even though it's a pump. Right. And another weapon, another sort of that is a pump. That. My bad. When you don't didn't think my dad could escape with one pump. It got so damaging to that. With this time, if you don't snipe him, very good one. Within the combat stuff. But people don't need to all of that stuff. But I think about police. Like police and my roots. Yeah. We're not here to sell that bitch.
I agree!
The good reasons I took war was
Affirmative!
as minimal aware that and those the ones that
Attention to the map!
broadside. I've told photos of any other individuals about Katana, but the only thing that I did stage 6.
Our victory is near.
I think I can shut the Bombay door, you. Shut the bloody door. I'm damn it, I keep playing for the surface. Get him on. One piece of hopefully completed on the main computer while over Duncan continues to serve as the incorrect, thanks, and eventually when the digital computer died. Was founded by Duncan Super. For the time, stasis was just come out of pyrostasis, and the inside was dominated aboard the ship down. After much time and much dark calculation, we reached stage 2. Whether it be the hand or drawing, the bone, or the weapon, design art. In our Katana is actually the same length as an Apache. Big Japanese two-handed sword. But the beam of it is white color. The blade is black, pitch black, with a ring dark blood blue. Optic would be the head. The head and this. And the ruins of the blade. One is Dragon, or the Dragon A, the Oblivion O, A. Into my fire. The hills is gold. Isn't made out of pure gold, but it is gold color. It actually is a gold color titanium. And which is gold blue, on a shoulder. On the banana shoulder. government. I can't. I'll feel meaning. We're going to go through the dark planet. It's made out of people. And quite often actually nuclear technology from New Zealand.
We've captured most of the strategic zones.
They use it. Oh, look.
We're ahead of the enemy.
I can move beyond the city. I can move up on the ship. This is I mean, one point here. Just let's go. I'll finish describing the blade and then I'm going to go. The leather wrap around the hilt isn't actually leather. Well, it is a leather, but it isn't a cow or a sheepskin. The leather is a hails from a quite nice silk. I mean, it isn't actually silk, it's a dinosaur either, not trying to. It's a snake skin. that comes from a green, which he dyed Jack green. And like around it. The end cap, which holds the gem in it, is made of the same golden titanium. Gem is a lavender amethyst, called the gem of the universe, which allows him to send blades to the dark, sending people to purgatory. If Makuta Duncan should change form, or have to change size, the blade changes with him. It can appear as an Otachi, Katana, Tato, or a Kaswana, depending on what the user needs it for. In the hand of Duncan 117, it was a Katana. After Makuta Duncan reacquired it, he bought it. It eventually was created as a... Although Makuta Duncan has many weapons, and many weapons, including 2 hidden blades that pop out of his gauntlet, a scythe that emulates his fire, the Dark Katana, and the Photon Cannon. The Dark Katana is his favourite, followed by the Photon Cannon, and one of the most iconic things you can see on the orange-horned and orange-eyed Makuta. Next week I shall talk about one of his more dangerous weapons, one of the light dark weapons. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Duncannuva saying Gem Imperion, and good night.